disclaimer for this podcast. While I and Brooke were recording, after the first 40 minutes, my laptop suddenly shut down. Turns out we lost the first 40 minutes of the visual. It was a big failure that I'd experienced, but thankfully I always record a backup, which is an audio only, which is through my phone. I would leave the voice notes on. Therefore, we were able to secure the whole interview. I just want to say I'm super sorry to Brooke and for her being super nice and understanding in the situation. So what you'll be seeing is the first 20 minutes of the podcast would be a visual and the next 40 minutes would be an audio only. So please enjoy this podcast. It's extremely valuable, and Brooke is an incredible human being, and there's just so much to learn from it. Please don't get bored. Go through the timestamps below, see every point, anything that you would want to pick up on and read, and you can listen to that section if you don't have the full 1 hour. I really hope you get a lot of value out of this. It's an incredible episode we did, and please enjoy the rest of the podcast. Bye. Guys, so bad. I'm so sorry.
You're totally fine. I feel like I've had these issues as well, where like my coworkers are like, "Oh, Brooke just left." Like,
well, I can't tell you, like, so many times I've recorded a podcast and my laptop is really old, okay? So sometimes it would just give up on me right in the middle of the call, and every time I sit before I'm praying, I'm like, just for 1 hour, please make everything okay. So I'm going to ask you, what's your dream?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I really just want to accomplish what feels uncomplishable, so I don't know. I've, as someone who's always worked hard, as someone who's always had the mentality that nothing's handed to me, as the person, who has family history embedded in hardship and coming to this country with nothing, I feel like my dream is to be a CEO. I don't know. I just feel like I want to, aside from being important, I want to do important things. I want to impact people. I want to really make a difference. This isn't me trying to be selfish. Like, I want to be a celebrity or famous. It's more like I really want to share the love and compassion that I have for what I do. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like or how that's going to feel. But yeah, I think the dream is just to be doing big things, like for people to know who I am, to know my work, to be a resource and an inspiration to young girls. I'd love to own a bakery. That's another dream. We will see if that happens.
Of course.
But yeah, no, I mean, I feel like you got to dream big or else, you're going to achieve way less than what you 100%. Set out. I feel like I'm manifesting only the most almost unachievable things that there are, just because, like I said, nothing's impossible. So it's just a matter of seeing it, believing it, feeling it, working towards that, even if, it doesn't feel like it's there or present or going to happen.
Yeah.
I feel like every day is kind of like a contribution towards that goal.
Damn. I think that's like one of my favorite quotes is shoot for the moon, and if you miss, you'll land up amongst the stars, and the bigger your dream is, the more you're able to develop yourself, even though you might be scared initially, but you'll build up the courage to develop yourself in that arena. So I think that's the only way to go about it. And on that note, I would like to ask you, would there be any advice that you would like to give out to the youth?
Yeah, I feel like a few things. Believe in yourself. A quote that my dad had shared with me. My dad is very big on motivational quotes. He was a really great source of encouragement all throughout like my education and now professional career. Don't listen to the naysayers. So don't listen to people who knock you down and who are jealous and always have something to say. Focus on yourself, what you intrinsically believe. Shoot for the stars. It's okay to not know what you're doing. And just kind of take on every day as a new challenge to achieve something. I feel like I feel like adulthood is the epitome of us, like no one really knows what they're doing. And, it's just a matter of chasing what makes you happy. So that's my advice. It's kind of, there's definitely a few different things wrapped in there, but it really goes together of just following your dreams, not listening to people who are who are disencouraging your dreams, and just working hard for it until one day it just happens. Like it'll eventually happen. I hope. I dream. I mean, I don't know if Gary saw himself as the CEO of our company, but here we are, and he wants to own the Mets. Like, will he own the Mets? Oh, not the Mets. I'm sorry,
Jets.
the Jets. Like, will he own the Jets? Like, I'm feeling like it'll happen. Like they're really. If someone wants to become the president, like, it is not impossible. So I feel like it really is just like shooting for the stars and going after what you want, not letting anyone stop you or bring you down. Just like keeping your head up and moving on. Keep moving and move forward and don't look back. That's my mentality.
That makes me really happy because I think that's the biggest contradiction, not to look down upon the youth today, but you will find a lot of people talking about manifestation and dreaming big, but they don't compensate that with working hard. And like you said, like you had the dream of getting like an amazing job as soon as you got right out of the college. But you did apply and you put in all that effort and boom, you got it. So dreaming big with putting in that work ethic to match up your ambition, I feel like that's the secret sauce. So thanks for sharing that so much. And I want to ask you, is there any question that you would like to ask me?
I mean, I'd love to know, like, for other people who have been on the podcast, like, what are some, like, amazing pieces of advice or, like, pieces of advice that, like, they've given or, like, stories that, like, you've walked away with that, you wouldn't have otherwise known, because I feel like this is a really cool way that you're meeting people. Like, you have bound to have heard amazing things from other amazing people. So, like, I'm curious.
I think the biggest aspect that I learned was because of Gary's advice, where he said people are the biggest ROI. And I remember he had a meeting with interns that he had invited this summer, and he said the biggest thing that you were going to learn at VaynerMedia is the connections that you built here. And I was like, wait, I'm not there. But what I did was I started reaching out to the employees and started building up connections and reaching out to people and genuinely being concerned and connecting with people. Like, someone would feel like, wow, you care about my story, and I do. And building that connection goes a long way. And I think people have given me a lot of advices, but the biggest thing has been is because they have dreams and I have dreams and we decide to stick together. I think 80% of the people I've interviewed, we're all still in touch and we're all, rooting for each other. I applied to VaynerMedia. I got in the first round as for the creator role. Yeah, I'm still waiting to hear back for the second one. They had Gary's NFT launch, so they said that they'll be getting out, reaching out to us sooner. But since I had interviewed a couple of employees, I showed them my cover letter and I had, all these advices to ask, and everyone was just genuinely so good with feedback and stuff. And that's when I realized how people really are the biggest ROI. And I think that's been my biggest learning in the podcast. And I think the greatest advice two people gave me. The first one was, I asked them, like, how many times you failed, and he said, how many stars are in the sky. And this guy, his name is Phil Wright. He is an amazing dancer, and he shared his story how he made it to LA sleeping in his car when he moved from Miami. So I got to learn real people's stories, and no one's sharing advice out of just razzing, but people have lived it. And then when they would share that sentence, I would take it with me. And the second one was from this guy called Brendan, who was amazing. The biggest thing he did for me was, after talking to me, he showed so much conviction he had in me. Like, that strengthened my confidence so much more, and I never got that from anyone in my physical environment, but it happened to be some random person on the podcast. And he said, anyone that you're looking at, like a guy running a $200 million company, they're giving off a projection, and they're no different than who you are. It's no point comparing your level 1 to someone else's level 10, and that's the way to go about it. Like, no one's better than you, no one's smarter than you. You're no better than anyone, and you're no smarter than anyone. At the end of the day, it's all about, like you said, how much you believe in yourself and how badly are you willing to work towards it. And so all these advices just kept on strengthening my belief system about things that I like to hold as my principles. So that's been the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I 100% agree with all of that. How many times have I failed? A million times. We've all failed a million times. I mean, perfection is impossible, as I said. And about that last statement that you made, I think that's really interesting. That's definitely something that is important to remember, that we're all equals here. So even just, trying to talk to the CEO, the CMO, the COO, like at the end of the day, like I know all these titles are scary, and this is kind of how I approached every internship. Other interns would be like, oh my God, why are you talking to blah, blah, blah? And it's like, well, why not? They're a human being.
Yeah.
And, I want to know their story, and they clearly have accomplished amazing things because look where they are. And like, I want to be in their shoes one day. They're not this like unattainable thing.
Yeah.
Even though Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos feel like they're not real people, and like that's just whatever. At the end of the day, like they started somewhere.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just feel like that's really awesome advice. I feel like if someone were to ask for one takeaway piece of advice that I gave, given that I gave away so much, really, it is, quote, don't listen to the naysayers. That is my motto. I feel like I speak that in my mind all the time, but really, like, it just goes back to, as you reiterated, like believing in yourself, not letting anyone bring you down, and like you'll go to amazing places, and you'll look back and you'll be like, wow, like all these people said I couldn't do it, and here I am. So that is my takeaway. If you're gonna take one thing from this, it is definitely that.
We have a lot to take away, just by the way, but definitely I'll note that into account. And I want to ask you, like, have you ever thought of making content or vlogging or like doing a podcast yourself?
Oh, I totally have. I'm still trying to figure out like if I should, what it should be about. I mean, it's definitely
you're awesome. Like, I was just thinking that you're genuinely, not saying it because you've come as a guest or being biased, I genuinely think that you have such an amazing story as a human, and anything that comes out of your mouth means something, and more than anything, I taught this to myself too, where I said I'm no one to make content, but I said I want people to know that we're in this together, and what I'm doing right now might not make sense, but when I do hit 7 or 8 years from now, all of this is documented. And Gary talks a lot about documenting your process. So if I would feel like, wow, Brooke got so lucky getting a job at Gary, I know now that she applied to 100 different places, and that's what prepared her for the right moment in her life. So you have so much to give, and we're missing out if you don't make content.
Yeah, I mean, I hope like 8 to 10 years from now, like, I hope I don't know where I'll be, but I hope to have come closer to the dream of being a CEO, and you can be like, I knew Brooke before it happened.
Yes, knew her before the fame.
Well, like, I think that's really cool. Like, everyone, like I said, everyone starts somewhere. We're all going places. So I think this is really awesome what you're doing. I'm excited to see some of the other people that you've interviewed and watch your other conversations, just because this has been so fun and enlightening, and I'm just like, this is exactly what I needed to like go into the weekend where it's like, wow, like I feel like major inspiration.
Thank you, man. You're amazing. And I want to ask you the last question, which is a feedback round, and we have 2 questions. One is what made you say yes, and the other one is if we could have improved anyhow.
I mean, I said yes because I felt like your message was very like genuine, forthcoming. I mean, I'm always excited to hop on other people's creative endeavors, and also the fact that you love Gary says something about your character as well. He has this ethos about empathy and his like honeybee hive of just positivity. So I feel like anyone who follows him, like, they have an element of that in themselves, and I just intrinsically trust that. Anything you can improve? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I think everything's been really positive, and like I'm excited to see this go live. Definitely let me know when links are live. 100%. I'll share it. I think this is really cool, and if you ever need other interesting people to talk to, I'd love to refer you over. Just like amazing people who are in my arsenal, just people who are in the game, doing really cool things, and definitely going places.
Thanks, Val. I really appreciate that. I actually did not get a chance to go to college, so I feel like this was my biggest way to network with people and, make friends and absorb and learn. So it's just been awesome, and I'm extremely grateful for you to say yes and hop on and being amazing. So thanks so much for that. I'll immediately let you know as soon as this goes live. And yeah, please let me know if there's any way I can add any value to you ever. I'm always there. So please reach out.
This was awesome. Please let me know how your job process goes. Because I am hoping that like I'm just gonna see you on Slack one day. I'll be like, oh my god, like Devika's here. This is crazy. No, keep me in the loop. I'd love to also stay in touch. I love that you've been in touch with other people who come on. So definitely let's keep the line of communication open. This has been amazing.
Thanks so much, Brooke. I'll definitely let you know how it goes. Fingers crossed we get in. And then we can be co-workers together.
I'm sending you cherries. Just
Thanks, man. That means a lot. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Look forward to speak to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, girl.
Bye. How have you been during the pandemic time? Like, how have things been with you? Are you in quarantine? Are you living alone? How is it looking?
My experience has been different over the past year and a half. So when the pandemic first started, I actually was still in school, in university. So I was in a different state. I was living in a house. I had roommates. And then I graduated in May. Not this, my last May.
Yeah.
So then, I've been quarantining since then from New York City, from home in my childhood apartment/bedroom, if you can see the bunk beds in the back. It's been a wild ride for sure.
So right now, are you living alone, or are you still with like roommates and family?
So I was before living with roommates. Now I'm just living with family.
I see. That's awesome. I'm super happy to hear that you're not alone. Because a lot of people who got stuck during the pandemic times being alone really could was a struggle to day-to-day surviving.
Yeah, no. How was your experience? What was that like?
It was good. I lived with my family, so we were all able to get through it together. But I did have other plans, but I feel like everyone's plan kind of came to a halt, so it was all good. Not a problem like that. But how was your work and everything? Like, are you working from home currently, or are you guys going to office? How is that working?
Yeah, no, I'm fully working from home. So it's been a really interesting journey. Like I said, I graduated from university in May. So before the pandemic hit, I was just starting to apply for jobs.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic hit full force, and when me and my roommates were hunkering down at school, some people even went home because there wasn't a reason for them to stay.
Yeah.
A lot of companies were on like a hiring freeze. They weren't even accepting people. So I feel like aside from just finishing out my degree, I was waking up every morning, aside from just the basics of eating, sleeping, and taking care of myself. I was sending out job application after job application, just to like see if anything hit.
Yeah.
And I ended up when I came home after I graduated and my lease was over at school, again, still applying for things. I ended up freelancing and doing like graphic design and social media work for this small female-led, awesome brand that's still growing. And it just so happened that I applied to Vayner in the spring, like of the millions of applications that I sent out, just being like, these people are never going to reach out to me, like this is hopeless, whatever. But they reached back out to me, funny enough, late June. And, after some back and forths, after, they had to find me a role of some sort, I started in August, and here we are. So,
damn.
Crazy. It's been, again, I feel like the pandemic has thrown everyone for a loop, but then again, I probably wouldn't be at this job if it weren't for COVID. So,
Everything worked out for the best.
Oh, yeah, no. Like, in my mind, I really feel like, good and bad, everything happens for a reason kind of thing.
How many jobs would you say you applied to before actually landing on one?
Oh, my God. I mean, I definitely physically applied to, like, 50, and then physically emailed 50 people, like, separately. Because there are also some, for me, I've always loved and, like, known that I wanted to do, like, marketing, advertising, like, something in that space. But sometimes these agencies aren't recruiting. You know, maybe you'll go on LinkedIn and see 1 or 2 job openings that are for very senior levels. For, you know, they're recruiting a CEO. I cannot apply for that. So, you know, aside from applying for the things that I physically could, you know, I was just reaching out to random contact numbers, just being like, hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. Here's a little bit about me, attaching my resume. Like, I didn't even know who I was sending this to technically. So I'd say like 100 plus. I mean, I've even done that in the past for internships and as well. Like, it really is like a luck of the draw. Other times I really do feel like it's who you know and like working your network, finding, you know, it's so hard to stand out in a sea of people. So I'm grateful that someone stumbled along my application, because, you know, other than that, I mean, I have a lot of friends who also graduated, and, you know, one of them didn't get a job until this week. And it's been, you know, it's been a full year, all summer, all fall, of just, you know, applying for things and getting no's. You know, it definitely is industry dependent, I will say, but that doesn't make it any easier, to, you know, regardless of who you are.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people underestimate that even in this job scenario where they are looking for a job, and hats off to you for applying to like 100 places, and it essentially is a numbers game, you know, like someone might look at you and be like, you know, you're so lucky you got that job, but they don't know the work you put in to be able to land up this one job. So congratulations, I'm super happy for you.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I feel like it was really funny in April. A lot of my friends, we were, you know, I'd FaceTime them while I was still at school, and they'd be like, what are you doing? I'm just watching Netflix and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm doing that too, but I'm also sending out job applications. And they're like, you're already doing that? And I'm like, yeah, no, like, now or never. I feel like, you know, I just wanted to cover my bases, and you know, I feel like my mentality is like nothing is handed to you on a silver platter. You have to go out and get it. So yeah, I was just like very driven, like, we are making this happen, even though I have zero faith in this, but it's fine. Yeah.
Awesome, man. I love that. You know, a lot of times when we're young, we might not have faith in ourselves because we haven't seen like that acknowledgement from society that we're craving because we haven't entered the world. But that is something that differentiates you, because irrespective whether I believe in myself or not, I'm going to continue to make efforts, and something's going to hit, and it did. And on that note, you're working as a micro content producer, your bio said, but when you were essentially applying for the job, did you know what role you were exactly applying for? How did you end up here?
It was quite not what I was expecting. I mean, I was applying for roles, I mean, across agencies, in strategy, in social media marketing, in public relations. I really was applying to like anything that I felt like my skill set touched, you know, think of like a sun, like a horizon, like whatever touches the light, we'll apply to it. Because even if I'm not even qualified, even if they say, you know, we need like 2 or 3 years of experience, I was just like, you know what, we're just going to
shoot my shot. Yeah.
No, I mean, like, because, you know, at the very least it'll just be a no, but like you never know if it's going to be a maybe or a yes. So actually when I applied to Vayner, I was applying for a job. To be honest, I don't even remember the name of the role anymore. It was something to do with like I think it was like a social media creator. I'm not 100% sure, but basically the reason why the back and forth happened between June and August is because they reached out to me and they were like, so loved what you sent in, but we're actually not recruiting for that role in general. Like no one's being picked for that role. Like it's obsolete. But we'd love to like find you for something else. So they actually sent me an application for a creator role, which I applied to, and then kind of came to a standstill in July, didn't have anything for me. So I actually was ready to go for another job offer. Like I was working, I told you I was freelancing, doing graphic design and social media marketing for this woman-led teen hygiene brand, and they gave me an offer. And it's funny how life works. It's always like when it rains it pours. Like in the 11th hour, I'm not even kidding, like 48 hours before I was ready, I signed on the dotted line, Vayner came back to me and they were like, hey, there's this smaller group under the VaynerX umbrella called the Sasha group. We actually have a role called a micro content producer. Like we think this would be a good fit. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Great.
They reached out after a month?
Yeah, so
Wow.
I honestly didn't even think that Vayner was happening. I mean, for me, I was just like, of course we can look at potential, but like, let's look at reality. What do I have on the table? I was going to go with this startup role until they reached out. And it's funny because my friend just experienced that too, where she had nothing, and then all of a sudden she had like 3 things. And, you know, it always seems to happen that way. But yeah, so it was very unexpected. Like, I didn't initially apply to this micro content producer role, but I did feel, you know, given the other applications that I had sent in, that the job description sounded like I could feasibly do this. Not sure exactly what it means, but like, throw me into the ring. Like, I'm ready to, like, whatever challenges you have, like, I'm ready to accomplish it. Like, let's just get my foot in the door.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And how are you liking your job description as a micro content producer? Like, what's your work like on a day-to-day basis?
I feel like my coworkers ask me a lot, what do I do? And I feel like I ask them, I say back to them, like, good question, not sure. I feel like, I don't know, it's really interesting because as someone who went to, you know, like, I went to a school where I studied marketing and advertising. You know, typically in the agency world, it's very strictly team oriented. So you're either creative, you are an account person who's facing and interacting with the clients and, you know, making deals, or you're a strategist. And, you know, on the other side of things, there are other departments as well, but it really is like those three departments. What's interesting is that there are people at Vayner who are definitely strictly those things. My role is kind of all 3. So I'm kind of wearing all these multiple hats. Like, I feel like my role is very flexible in that I can kind of make it what I want of it. But at the same time, there is another MCP on our team, and like, we have completely different skill sets. And
what does
like,
MCP mean?
MCP is the micro content producer.
Ah, I see.
Right. So like, so something that they've said that's really interesting is like, one micro content producer is not the same as another, because I feel like, you know, at the end of the day, we all have additional skills in our back pocket that aren't the same as the other person. So, you know, I just so happen to have some skills in design and Adobe, but someone else has skills in, you know, in web design, and they can code. So I feel like it's really interesting because we're kind of floaters, you know, like, we can kind of choose where we want to go with it. So I guess it's like amazing and terrifying all at the same time. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like that's what makes it exciting for me, and that every day is totally different. Nothing is off the table. It's just a matter of expressing, like, I would love to, you know, hop in on that project. Like, what can I do to help? And just being very proactive about, like, my career, but also, you know, being reflective. You know, where do I want to go? Did I like doing this work? Was this painful? Was this exciting? Do I want to do more of that, less of that? So it's very much a learning process, being this title.
And you wanted to get into the advertising agency, but now that you are in, is it something that you had expected? Like, are you happy?
So I've actually had an internship at a smaller agency, and that was my first taste of agency life. So I really knew, like, this would be a ton of fun. And of course it's different, you know, being in COVID and, like, in a pandemic and not being able to, like, work physically in an office. But what I found so amazing during my internship that was, you know, in person 2 summers ago, you know, I was on set, we were filming a commercial, I had the little marker, you know, we were sitting in a circle and brainstorming, and, you know, also making visuals that were eventually, you know, put out on social media for these large accounts, and, you know, people were interacting with them. So I felt like, for me, like, there was a lot going on that was really cool. And not that I'm making commercials, I'm not, but I would say it's really cool that Vayner is such a large network and people are doing so much. You know, that it's cool that when you watch the Super Bowl, it's like, oh, hey guys, like, our team over here, we actually did the Scott's Miracle Grow commercial with John Travolta, so check it out. And it's just like, you know, like, they're amazing, talented people across the board doing amazing things. So I feel like that's what makes me happy, is that, like, there's an influx of great work coming in and great people to work with.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I said, like, it's great when every day's a new day, because, you know, like, oh, want to work with Utz, you know, want to work with blank insert name. It's like, sure, why not? Like, I feel like there's like no shortage of things to do, if that makes sense.
100%. Like, you feel like you're part of something bigger, and they are, like, out in the world, you can see how competent they are as an agency as well, and being part of that is kind of cool.
Oh yeah, no, and also the fact that Gary himself is a celebrity.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say, like, it's funny because at the end of the day, VaynerMedia is still an agency, but it just so happens that, like, our CEO is a celebrity, and, like, this inspirational, motivational person. But, like, I will say that adds to, like, the positive company culture. There's just I would say, like, it is all around, like, positive, good vibes. Like, everyone is, like, very supportive. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, what's been very shocking, I am very familiar with the fact that people usually jump agency to agency. You know, they spend 1 year here, 2 years there, 3 years there. Yeah. I mean, I have coworkers who've been here for 8 or 9 years, and I'm just like, okay, wow, there's a reason why you've stuck around. So, you know, being a new employee, also this being my first real job, I feel like these are all, like, very enticing and exciting things to see. And look forward to. So,
were you aware of Gary before I'm sure you were aware of him, but were you, like, aware of him, like, deeply? Were you, like, a super big fan, or were you, like, following his work before you joined it?
I was definitely aware, but I wasn't, like, a super fan. It's funny that you asked this question, because when I was at school, given that I went to school in Michigan and I'm in New York, I would have to fly in between breaks. So there was this one break that I flew back, and I was in an Uber and talking to the Uber driver, and I think he also was, like, Belarusian, and he was talking about Gary. That was the first time I heard about Gary from this Uber driver, and he was asking me, like, about my major and whatever. So I feel like that's, like, ironic that I'm now working for the person that was casually mentioned to me, but I feel like, you know, maybe that was, like, the push that, you know, I knew of Gary, I knew of VaynerMedia, so it just so happened that, like, I applied to their company. But it wasn't until, like, I started to actually see the potential of a job at Vayner that, like, I really started to listen to Gary's podcast, and I was just like, wow, this guy is spitting wisdom. He's ahead of the game. He knows this industry. People look up to him, and I just thought that was really cool. Like, you know, added bonus. Don't mind if I do. My boss is just dope.
Awesome. Yeah, man, you're in really good hands. You know, I'm a diehard Gary fan, so I know that how adamant he is about his company's philosophy of everyone practicing empathy, and that's how I started my podcast, with inviting his employees on my podcast, and, you know, just, like, his comment section, because I knew that it was a safe place. Like, no one would be rude to me, no one would make fun of me, everyone was just genuinely kind, and not that they were trying to put up a persona, it's because it was just so deeply embedded in the company. Like you said, to support each other, you know, be happy in each other's success. That behavior, like, you start absorbing it, and it makes you perform even better than you would if you knew this other person's trying to compete with you or envies you or something like that. So it's a great, like, cultural environment to, you know, grow and nourish yourself into whoever you want to be. And I feel like that is the biggest reason that people stay, because they feel happy, you know?
When I got hired, I mean, I got a handwritten letter from the COO, Rob Lenois, and I was just shocked that, like, you know, like, they're just, like, the little things, you know, like thoughtfulness. A little goes a long way, you know what I mean? Versus, 100%. You know, another company, they're just like, woo, like, happy you're here, and then they kind of, like, forget about you. But, like, that was a nice little gesture. I don't know. I think there's a lot of empathy is the right word. I mean, Gary uses it all the time, but, like, that really is, like, what I feel like is a crucial part as well to the hiring process. You know, they're not going to bring on people they're not going to bring people on a team that, like, are, you know, cynical or competitive in the sense that, like, they're trying to tear other people down to, you know, get ahead. I really feel like it's, like, a positive, happy-go-lucky place where, like, everyone genuinely is, like, happy for other people and wants to see them grow.
Yeah.
That's just how I felt during my residency. I was going to say I started in August as a resident, so I wasn't even a full-time employee. I had to, you know, prove myself for a few months. but even during that time, it was really cool getting to know everyone virtually over Google Hangout, just because you could like feel that energy.
Yeah, I'm sure. Did they mention it to you? What was like the defining factor that they picked you up as the ideal candidate, or what do you think it is?
Also funny that you asked this. I can't say I know exactly what made me sit out, but I will say I was talking to Gary's right-hand man. His name is Justin Novello. He was recruiting with me at the beginning, and turns out he was working with Gary like during the early days at the wine store, like his dad's wine store. So Justin was saying, you know, what was really interesting about the application that I sent in for that new role that they had sent me, you know, after they're like, this other one's not happening.
What was the role that you'd initially apply for?
So I think I applied for something that was like social media marketing or like social media strategy, really specific, but that wasn't being recruited for. And then they gave me an application for this overarching creator role, which could mean, I don't know, are you a TikToker, are you a video editor, are you a graphic designer? Like, I think it's vague for a reason,
right?
To like bring in creative minds. So when I sent in the application, I was given a prompt, you know, aside from just answering the typical questions of like, how would you describe yourself in a GIF, or you know, or like, what are your skill sets? You know, typical job things. Like after you got past that stage, there was a prompt that they give these creatives where they say, okay, so a blank X company is trying to be like the biggest thing in the world, like make content to show them that they would put out in the world. So I was going to say, I had me and a few friends applied to these roles, and we each got different companies. So I got a cherry company, another friend of mine got a popcorn company, another friend got a shampoo company, all with the same prompt though, but you know, given that we're all creative in different ways, we all approached it in a way that, you know, spoke to our skill set. So what Justin told me had made me stand out was that aside from the requirement of making content, you know, I just did all this graphic design. I curated a whole cherry Instagram. I made cherry tweets, and I shared the tweets on the Instagram. I also sent along with it a strategy deck explaining my ideas. So he had made clear that was kind of what made me have a little bit of edge. But I feel like for me, it was just kind of, it seemed natural, you know, like why, I'm not going to assume that people are going to look at this creative work and understand it. So it's funny that like something that was intuitive to me wasn't intuitive to other people. And that was like the thing that, you know, like going that like extra little step meant something to them. When they're looking at my application. So that was really cool. Now I feel like I have like a secret love for cherries. My sister, after I got hired, my sister bought me a pair of socks with cherries on them.
Oh my god, that's such a cute gift.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's funny that definitely was a crucial part of me getting the role, even though I wasn't even hired as a creator, but you know, like I had to prove myself as well before even they brought me on. You know, is this person worth our time? Like, are they skilled? Do they have something to offer? I would say that deck, cherries and that deck. So I have cherries now that I can't take away.
That's so awesome, man. And what would you say is your biggest learning since it's been a couple of months since you're working there?
Something I've learned is to say yes to everything, which is kind of counterintuitive given that like you obviously should say no to things that like you're not able to do. And I feel like also, you know, I see on social media all the time when people talk about their mental health, like, you know, you should probably say no to things that you don't want to do, or like you know, you need to also take care of yourself and your mind and be mindful of things that use your time to do. But also at the same time, with that mentality of saying yes to everything, I just feel like there are so many open doors, and there are so many amazing people to work with that, like, for me, I just want to expand my horizons as much as I can. So I feel like for me, it's like, do you want to work with this company that you've never heard of before? Why not? Like, do you want to like try doing this project, even though like your skill sets aren't that strong in that? Like, yeah, let's work on those. Like, you know, so I feel like it's all kind of a learning process. I almost feel like I'm back in college kind of like an undeclared major. And I mean, I was just going to say, like, there's so much positive energy and great opportunity that, you know, for me, like, I'm asking for more. Like, I'll finish something and I'll be like, what else do you have for me? So I feel like it's just being open to opportunity, making good of a bad situation, just reflecting on, you know, COVID in general, like how I even got here, being persistent, showing up every day and working your hardest. But yeah, also like doing what you're passionate about. I mean, I think there's another thing where I love this job, so I can get up every day and be excited about it. But if you're not excited about it, then how can you expect to be good at it? So, you know, I feel like it's been a very introspective experience for me as a whole. I know that was a mouthful, but it really is
No, it makes so much sense.
It's been eye-opening how much one can accomplish and like how much one can grow in a few months. Yeah. It's been awesome.
I'm really happy to hear that, man. Like, it makes me genuinely feel good, man. Like, young people are doing what they love, and that the company gives you that ecosystem where you can thrive, and, you know, you're discovering more things about yourself and learning that, yeah, I do love this and I want to work hard because they've created such a good environment for you. So that makes me really excited. And I'm really curious to know, what's your story as a person, you know, like how you were born, how you were bred, and till today, what would you say is your story?
So, I am a true New York City girl. I grew up in the city. I was gonna say, there's this funny thing in the States, like I feel like when I went to college, everyone says like, oh, I'm from New York, but it's like, are you really from New York? Like, did you ride the subway growing up? Do you know how to like call a cab or like barter? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I like fully grew up in an apartment. Went to public school. I was exposed to all walks of life. My friends are like all races, religions, all different backgrounds, socioeconomic statures. I feel like that really shaped me as a person. One, growing up in the city, I definitely grew up very quickly. Like, I had to be, you know, a very wise and mature kid from the get-go, just having street smarts and knowing how to read people. But also, you know, given that you're in a city, I felt like people watching, observing people, just like being very hyper aware of my surroundings was vital to the person that I am now. Just because there's something to be said about being in tune with your environment and being able to sense like changes in environment or changes in demeanors, or, you know, sensing different personalities or sensing different ways people interact. I mean, it was all very important for me growing up. I mean, I see that now. I guess I feel like there are times I took it for granted, and then when I was placed in new settings, I realized like, wow, I can hold my own, or, you know, I can figure it out, or like maybe I'm like a little more mature than these people over here, and that's okay. Like, you know, I'm kind of, not that I like thought of myself as better than anyone, but I think, you know, it gives you a different kind of world view. So yeah, I mean, I went to high school in the city. I was that kind of kid who I mean, all of us, if you're from America, you're an immigrant technically, but my family is an immigrant family. My grandparents were from Eastern Europe, and they had survived the Holocaust. And I feel like that had a trickle down effect on my parents and then me, of just, you know, like, I feel like the mentality was, we are so lucky to be here.
Yeah.
This is the greatest country in the world. Like, anything is possible. And like the world is your oyster. So I feel like for me, just because I grew up in New York City, you know, like, of course, like, there are different privileges that we all have, and we have to recognize that. But I feel like that was kind of my mentality. In the same way that I approached applying for jobs, like, nothing is handed to you. Yeah. So I was always that kid working extremely hard. I always had the study guide in high school and middle school. Everyone's like, oh my God, Brooke has the 10-page study guide. I feel like I've been a working machine. And I will also say, like, that does also take into account the fact that for New York City, what's very unique to our school system, unlike, you know, if you live in a suburb, you kind of just move school to school, but with New York, given that there's so many people, there's kind of this like college application process, if that makes sense. There's like, it's been competitive since day one. So I feel like in some ways, like, yes, that was stressful, and did I Did I overwork myself and definitely not take care of myself at certain points? Absolutely. But I feel like, I know it's cliche, but like hardworking is definitely a word that I feel like represents myself. It's like in my blood and like represents like who I am as a person. But then I don't know. I also feel like where I relate to Gary is like that empathy piece. Like I've always believed in friendliness and you know, like not seeing differences between people, seeing people as like my equals. You know, collaborating, working together to make like amazing things, whether that be a project or, you know, in high school, whether that be a theater production. So I don't know. I feel like that kind of speaks to my story. And in terms of marketing and advertising, I mean, I had no idea I was going to be in this field until like a random summer internship with a family friend who also amazing woman. Her name is Lori Singer. She is a boss. She is a queen. She worked at Coty, and she's responsible for a whole line of fragrances that I'm sure you've used. I mean, the Marc Jacobs Daisy fragrances, Calvin Klein, Balenciaga. Like she was awesome. And she was that was my first job, and she was my first mentor. So I feel like that was kind of an epiphany for me. Seeing a woman who is so successful and sharp and commanding a room. Yeah. But also for me, like seeing all of my different interests kind of interact. Like I love learning, but I love society and people. So I was playing around with the idea of psychology and education, but I didn't really want to do teaching. I feel like, I don't know, there was like all this interlacing that was happening in the marketing and advertising world where it was both informative and strategic, but also creative, expressive, visual. So yeah, I mean, from then on there, I was like, have I hit the jackpot? Like, is this what I'm doing? So that's kind of my story. I feel like it's really just, I wouldn't say it personally, like, for me isn't rags to riches, but I do feel like my family story is very much rags to riches, like coming to America with nothing and just making a life. Like, I feel like, you know, I'm just trying to make a life for myself, be independent, and do amazing things. You know, I feel like I have big shoes to fill. I have a legacy to live up to. So that's definitely my story in a nutshell.
I love that. I love how self-aware you are, and I love how you look at it as such a big mission to fill the shoes, you know, like so many people would take it for granted because you haven't firsthand seen that adversity, but your family has experienced it and they were able to turn that adversity into an advantage, giving you such an incredible work ethic, where you said right off the bat in a 10-minute conversation where you really, really worked hard and you felt like nothing is handed to you on a, you know, silver platter, and you worked right through it. And this tells me that irrespective, you know, where you might be in life, you'll make a life for yourself. You'll always know how to navigate your way. And that's just really, really awesome to hear and learn about you. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. And on that note, I want to ask you, so you said that you discovered you wanted to get into advertising and stuff after your first internship. So how did you choose your major for your college?
When I was in school, I was very confused. I mean, just going back to my family story, feeling like I had really big shoes to fill, like, you know, at one point I was on a pre-med track. I thought I was going to be a doctor. And then I was considering maybe being a lawyer. I don't know. I feel like there were just, and those definitely weren't fits for me, but I felt like I had to accomplish the hardest thing ever and just soar. But then again, I realized in school when I started that track, you know, of doing medicine, I realized, you know, like, I'm not, like, this isn't what makes me happy. Like, I'm getting up in the morning, I'm dreading this class, I'm also failing miserably, and I've never failed in my life. Like, there's something wrong here. So I feel like for me, like, what led me to that major was, coming to the realization of what's not for me. So it was, you know, this trying to be someone that I'm not. Like, let's acknowledge that I am not this person as much as I wish to be or think I should be. Like, if we're talking reality, this is not who I am. Cool. We're going to push that aside. Thank you for that learning experience. And then from there, I very much was just undecided. I was taking a bunch of entry-level classes, intro to psychology, intro to sociology, intro to communications, mean, it was all over the block. But I found personally is that I loved every single one of my classes, and I didn't know how to decide where to go. And it wasn't until that internship that I realized that they could all kind of marry without me having to do just one thing. You know, I didn't have to just be a teacher or a psychologist or a like art historian. I could be this like, you know, intermix of all of the above by pulling little things here and there. So yeah, I mean, it was really informative. I know that classes and jobs are not always the same. So actually, like, taking marketing classes was a whole thing in and of itself. Yeah. Taking like digital media and communications classes when I was defining, you know, my specialties, you know, it's different in practice, of course. Yeah. But I did feel like I found kind of the light at the end of the tunnel that helped me find my way a little bit more. And as, of course, like as you get further along in school, the harder the classes get, but also the more specific and niche they get. And I just felt like, wow, like this is some really interesting stuff. Mm-hmm. So at school, just for clarity, I ended up majoring in communications. I had a minor in digital media, so that's kind of where the social media piece comes in. Yeah. But also, you know, I learned how to code. I learned about like the internet, how there are like wire cables under the water, like crazy things. Yeah. And then I had like a focus in marketing and sales and advertising sales, which was, I mean, I wasn't in the business school. I took a little like fast track through that. But yeah, no, I really feel like that's kind of where like all those skills came, where when I was applying for jobs, I was like, I could do that. Like, even though they're all drastically so different, they're kind of in the same wheelhouse. But I don't know, I really feel like what helped was just kind of listening to myself. I think a lot of times people enter university, college, thinking that they need to be something. And yes, there are very high expectations. You are paying a high premium to go to school. You want to come out with a job that's going to pay you. And, you know, there were times when I said to my parents, oh, I want to be an English major. And they were like, what are you going to do with that? I will argue that, like, that's what they said was wrong. And I understand where it comes from. But, you know, there's this intrinsic fear that, you know, you're investing in something, I should get 100%. Something out of this. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you have to realize, like, college is a place where people are still finding themselves, and like you don't have all the answers. So I don't know, I feel like it just requires being very honest with yourself. Like, you know, do you like this? Is this making you unhappy? Does this give you joy? Does this feel like work, or does this feel like play? Could you see yourself doing this for longer? Or, you know, is this interesting to you, or is that just the extent that it goes? You know, I feel like for me, I was taking classes that I thought were interesting, but I knew I didn't want to do that as a job, you know? So I feel like it's just being like very self-aware, being reflective.
I also feel like you tried so many different things, you know, you didn't just sit there and think like, oh, you know, what do I like? You tasted anything that came to your mind, and that maybe you did not find right off the bat what you like, but you even did find like, you know, this is not something I want to do, and that's equally as helpful as finding something that you do like. So that's super awesome.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the beauty of college. It's funny because I definitely was having like a midlife or quarter life crisis. When I was getting C's and D's coming from a girl who knows A's and B's, you know. But I will say, like, it was a very sobering moment where it's like you cannot be good at everything. Like, you know, like at the end of the day, you need to do you need to find what you're both good at and what excites you and makes you happy. 100%. And I feel like, you know, there are just some jobs where I give people major credit because I just cannot. That is just not for me. Like, I was just in a relationship, and my ex-boyfriend, he's on a pre-med track, and I'm just like, God bless you. I could, like, taking like MCATs and being in school for 8 years, like, God bless your heart, but that is not for me. So I feel like, you know what, everyone has their own path, and I respect it completely. So it's just a matter of, like, knowing what's like your thing. But also, it's like not being afraid to
make the wrong decision. Yeah.
Because, like, I feel like no one be honest. I mean, I'm even in a job now and I don't even know what I'm doing. So, like, it's...
Yeah. That's really comforting to know. I feel like we put up a lot of pressure on ourselves, you know, like I have to have it figured out by so-and-so age, and that's just unfair.
Yeah, no, and people also, like, I see my coworkers who are, you know, in their 30s, 40s, sometimes 50s or 60s, and, like, they're fully reinventing themselves. Like, they're making new businesses. Like, I feel like there's never, you know, there's no deadline. Like, you can change and do things whenever you want. So I feel like, you know, I don't have just one dream. I have multiple dreams. Like, okay, I want to work in marketing and advertising, but maybe I want to open up a bakery. Maybe I want to create a streetwear brand. I don't know. Like, like, yeah, world is your oyster. Like, I just feel like you just have to put your mind to it and, you know, do little actionable steps every day to be like, can I accomplish this dream? Like, do I want, like, you know, nothing is impossible, essentially.
Yeah. And on that note, I want to ask you, there's this question that we ask everyone on the podcast is, are you happy?
I am both happy and not happy. Happy in that I love what I'm doing. I love life. I'd say the only reason I'd say, and this has nothing to do with my job, I think it's just reflecting on the past year and a half of COVID. It's just been, it's been a really hard year. There's been a lot of loss, a lot of death. You know, it makes me grateful to be alive and to live every day to its fullest. But, like, I miss living. I miss my friends. I miss my family. But, you know, I feel like we're really, like, at a turning point, and I think things are only getting better from here. Yes. So overall, I would say I am 85%, 90% happy. The other percent is just, you know, like being aware of the times, sometimes like the news or reality of the situation of life weighing on me. But other than that, I mean, I feel like my motto is just to, like, keep your head up, be optimistic. Things can't always be perfect. Like, nothing can ever be perfect. But, you know, I try to just enter every day with a positive attitude, and that's all you can really do, you know?
Yeah. How are you keeping in touch with your friends and stuff? Do you plan to do creative Zoom calls or something? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed, of course, like, as the circumstances have changed with the pandemic, but, you know, we were doing Zoom calls for, you know, to, like, serve as a birthday party. I was FaceTime people. You know, eventually, when things were a little bit better, I've been seeing people masked, and we'd go on, like, a socially distanced walk.
Yeah.
Now I'm vaccinated and my friends are vaccinated, so it's like a whole new ballgame now where it's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you for a year and a half. Like, I'm seeing this person, like, touching you, like, it's going to be crazy. Yeah. But I really do feel like it's been the power of social media and technology that's, like, kept me bridged with people, but also I fully have made brand new connections or have connected with people who I know of, or, like, maybe I'm connected to in a very casual sense, but now there are certain people that I fully consider my friends just because we've had lengthy conversations on a call, and it's like,
I didn't know you had that in you.
So I feel like it's amazing. I'm kind of in awe of what the pandemic has taught us. Like, as much devastation and hardship that it's brought to everyone, it's completely changed, I think, everyone's perspective. We've all gone through this, and we've all seen good and bad come out of it. So I don't know. So I think social media, as terrible as it can be, like, let's not forget, like, there are trolls, there are bad people out there. But, like, regardless of that, like, at the end of the day, there are still well-intentioned, good people, and, you know, we all want love and attention and care, and, like, you know, if you just, like, extend a hand out, people are there. So I feel like, yeah, I mean, I'm just excited. I'm very excited for the in-person, but in the meantime, I very much may do. Thank you to Instagram, direct message, and FaceTime, Snapchat, all these, like, TikTok. Oh my God, TikTok has been my lifeblood of making me feel seen and heard, getting a good laugh. I laugh all to myself with my room, like, in my room. Yeah, it's been amazing. So that's definitely what I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. What would you say is your dream I would frame up the question asking people what is your end goal, but I want to know like what's your dream?
My dream. I really feel like I just reflect on my family. I mean, like I said, we were Holocaust survivors. We came from nothing. I've heard a million stories of just like
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. Look forward to speak to you soon.
awesome. Thanks so much, girl.
Bye.